Part 1. The Will. The blind essence. Behind the veil of reality. In the vast, and sometimes misunderstood, flow of Western philosophy, Arthur Schopenhauer stands as a harsh landmark dividing the rational optimism of the 18th century from the existential pain of the 19th century. He did not seek beautiful theories or vain promises to comfort humanity, but chose to look directly into darkness to find the real engine operating this entire universe. Our journey starts with a deep ontological question. Why does the world exist, and what stands behind the constant and sometimes brutal movements of all things? To answer this, Schopenhauer performed a spectacular overthrow of all previous philosophical traditions, especially against great predecessors like Immanuel Kant. He did not accept that humans are forever separated from reality's true essence by cognitive barriers, but affirmed each of us holds the unique key to open the door leading into the universe's deepest and most hidden realm. Now, to understand the thought revolution of Arthur Schopenhauer, we must return to Immanuel Kant's theory of the thing in itself. Kant created a great shock, arguing the human brain is like colored glass. We see the world through the prism of space-time and causality. Therefore, what we see is only phenomenon, the appearance shaped by senses, while the true essence of things, called the thing in itself or noumenon, remains forever beyond human reason's reach. Kant believed we are locked in perception's prison and can never know what reality is without an observer. However, Schopenhauer found a hole in that solid wall. He realized humans do not just observe the world as external objects, but experience themselves from within. When you feel hunger, extreme fear, or burning longing, it is not an image or concept, but a direct and intense impulse. From this unique inner experience, Schopenhauer declared the thing in itself is not mysterious, but it is the will. The concept of will in Schopenhauer's philosophy is completely different from what we usually understand as rational will or calculated decisions. According to deep research from Oxford University, the will here is a metaphysical force, blind, unconscious, and never satisfied. It has no starting point, no final purpose, and follows no laws of logic or common morality. The will is an eternal thirst, a never-ending effort to exist and affirm itself. It is not just in humans, but flows through every fiber of the entire universe, from gravity keeping planets in orbit to the force pushing seeds through rocks and soil. Most clearly in the violent survival instinct of all species, the universe, to Schopenhauer, is like a vast and turbulent ocean of will, where all individual things are temporary ripples, rising then quickly sinking into the infinite deep sea. The will does not care about your happiness, it only cares about maintaining its own existence through endless reproduction and destruction. Schopenhauer emphasized that the will is the root of all existence, a single indivisible entity, yet present in countless forms within the representation world. When we understand every movement from atoms to desires as will's manifestation, we see the true picture of existence right now. From this foundation, Arthur Schopenhauer built his life's greatest proposition, the world as will and representation. He argued, everything we see, touch and hear in this life is actually representation. Representation is how the will performs itself through the human brain's mechanism, limited by space, time and causality. The phenomenal world we live in is just a curtain covering the inner brutal essence, like a painting on turbulent ground. Schopenhauer affirmed the human body is the most direct embodiment and clearest representation of the will. Every body part is the objectification of a specific desire. Teeth and digestive system are the will, as hunger. Genitals are the will, as reproductive longing, and legs are the necessity of moving to possess space and survive. We often mistakenly think we use reason to control body and life, but actually reason is just a helping tool, a servant created by the will to satisfy its blind and cruel demands. We are not our own masters, but just temporary containers for that metaphysical power swept away in the flood of desires that never end. The deep study of Arthur Schopenhauer on the will leads us to a tragic and brutal view of nature and society, because the will is unified but fragments itself into countless individual and finite entities. It is always struggling and tearing itself apart to manifest. Every life in this world must consume another life to continue existing, creating a painful food chain. This is why nature is full of cruelty without any satisfactory moral explanation. The tiger must tear the deer to survive, and plants must reach to claim light and space from others, pushing weaker ones to death. The entire world is a giant battlefield where the will is biting its own flesh through different representations in an eternal loop. Suffering is not an accidental event or historical mistake, but the core nature of a system driven by an unstoppable impulse never satisfied. This view is strangely similar to the concept of suffering or dukkha in Buddhism, a philosophy Schopenhauer respected deeply and found profound resonance with. He considered Upanishads translations his life's greatest solace, marking a rare and deep intersection between ancient Eastern wisdom and rigorous Western systemic thinking. Now, under actual research, we find similarities between Schopenhauer's will to live and Shocking findings in modern evolutionary biology. Experts at Harvard University pointed out much of our behavior is driven by genes, biological entities only caring about replication and maintaining existence through generations blindly sometimes, regardless of human happiness or safety. Schopenhauer's will can be seen as a genius prediction of biological motives hidden deep beneath cognitive and cultural layers when we feel instinctive fear without reason or unexplainable intense attraction to someone. It is the will's voice controlling ancient neural circuits in our brain. Schopenhauer was far ahead of his time, identifying this mind's shadow where instinctive urges always wait to seize control of our behavior from reason's grip. He elevated these observations into a philosophy system encompassing all reality, helping us understand man is actually part of the universe's great and restless energy flow now, accepting that we are driven by a blind and cruel power might cause deep despair, but for Schopenhauer, it is the first and most important step toward true freedom. Only when identifying the giant controlling us from within can we begin seeking ways to master and transcend it. He does not want us to escape truth with illusory religious beliefs or fake optimistic theories, but wants us to look directly at reality with the calmest and most alert attitude possible. This world is not designed to bring you personal happiness as you expect. It is a battlefield of endless will desires. Understanding this, we start reducing vain expectations of external values, viewing our pain through a broader and more tolerant lens for ourselves and others. We are no longer pathetic victims of fate, but subjects awakening to the true nature of existence. Schopenhauer's pessimism is actually a call to live more honestly and courageously within the will's restless flow. Ending the first part of this thought dissection, we find ourselves before a haunting yet liberating fateful truth. We are not perfect rational beings or supreme creatures, as we boast and mistakenly think, but living embodiments of a blind will and infinite longing. We exist for no superior reason or divine plan, but simply because the will wants to continue existing and manifesting through us in this world. This is the root of all suffering and human conflicts, but also the most precious material to build deep compassion for every living being, sharing this fate of being condemned to exist. This truth might be very bitter and hard to accept initially, but it is necessary alert medicine to escape ignorance of shallow happiness, illusions, and start the journey seeking true inner peace. Every step in will awareness is a step closer to truth light, helping us stand firm before life's storms. Right now, have you ever felt driven by a desire that your own reason could not explain. Part 2. The pendulum of life. The tragedy between pain and boredom. If the first part identified the will as a blind and cruel impulse controlling the entire universe, then, in this part, we dive deep into how that impulse torments the human mind in real daily life. Arthur Schopenhauer provided one of the most brutal yet true metaphors about human existence. Life is like a pendulum swinging back and forth between pain and boredom. This is not just an emotional observation of a pessimist, but a deep ontological analysis of desire and existence nature. According to Schopenhauer, every human effort and longing stems from lack, from a deep hole in the soul that the will always tries to fill at any cost. This lack creates persistent pain when we long for something: social status, romantic love, or huge wealth. We are actually in tension and suffering because the goal remains unfulfilled now. However, the true human tragedy is not failing to reach desire, but the very moment we think we touched happiness. Schopenhauer argued that as soon as a need is satisfied, the joy vanishes, quickly giving way to a scarier and emptier state. Extreme boredom, or ennui. Boredom for him is not a light, tedious feeling, but clearest evidence of existence's meaninglessness. When no goal remains to chase, man faces himself directly, realizing his existence has no inherent meaning. To escape that scary emptiness, the will immediately triggers and creates a new false desire, a new goal, to keep us in the vortex. Thus man is pushed between two extremes: pain and emptiness, forever without a stable, happy landing spot. Now, deep research from Harvard University's psychology lab on hedonic adaptation proved Schopenhauer's point. From a neuroscience perspective, humans have a biological tendency to return to baseline happiness after positive or negative events. This explains why the intense joy of buying luxury cars, owning villas, or achieving career peaks lasts only briefly before feeling normal and dreaming of something higher. Our reward system, especially dopamine operation, seems designed not for long satisfaction but urging us to constantly seek and possess. Schopenhauer called this the great deception of the will to live, always hanging a carrot of hope before our nose, forcing us to pull existence's carriage forever through miles of suffering. Imagine a beggar receiving a large coin. For him, that coin is great happiness, helping him survive today's hunger. But that same coin starts tomorrow's anxiety, as he must find the next one. Happiness, for Schopenhauer, is only a negative value. It is simply the temporary cessation of pain or lack. It is like lifting a heavy burden from the shoulder. That instant relief is what we mistakenly call happiness. But it vanishes quickly as we prepare for another, harsher burden. He compared human life to a journey on a sinking ship where we busy bail water to stay afloat, even knowing the final destination is the ocean floor. Boredom was viewed by Schopenhauer as a harsh curse for high intellect souls. He noted, animals rarely feel bored because they busy with survival instincts and immediate needs, but humans with superior intellect, after solving basic needs like food, shelter and safety, fall into terrible spiritual emptiness immediately. This is why human society creates endless vain entertainment, luxury parties or useless pleasures just to kill time and escape themselves. We fear absolute silence because in silence we hear the haunting whisper of absurdity surrounding human life. Schopenhauer claimed human suffering is proportional to awareness level. The wiser the person, the deeper the existential anxiety and boredom become. Now, to show research depth on will's deception, we look at how Schopenhauer dissected romantic love and marriage through the genius of the species lens. He argued love between man and woman is actually a subtle trick of the will to ensure reproduction. When two people love intensely, they think they seek personal happiness and soul salvation, but actually they are driven like puppets by the will to create the next generation with optimal biological traits. Once nature's goal is reached through reproduction, the magic love curtain falls, quickly leaving individuals naked, facing boredom and daily conflicts. His view, though extreme, opens an awakening about not placing too much hope in external values or short relationships to seek ultimate meaning for existence right now. Recognizing this suffering loop and life's pendulum is not for giving up or choosing suicide, an act Schopenhauer strongly opposed as cowardly surrender to the will. Instead, this awareness starts a conscious rebellion. Schopenhauer advised reducing needs to minimum, living a simple, secluded life to reduce pain's contact area. If life is a pendulum, we must narrow its oscillation amplitude by mastering desires instead of chasing will's bright illusions of happiness. We should learn to accept life is inherently hard and full of disappointments. This philosophical acceptance brings strange calm, helping man escape the will's fury, starting to observe the world calmly, rather than an entity longing to possess. We are desire beggars chasing satisfaction ghosts, not knowing the destination is a new pain's beginning. The blind inner will never stops forcing us to long, struggle and suffer in a loop without exit. Pain from lack and boredom from excess always coexist like shadows throughout human existence. Understanding the life pendulum law, we stop blaming fate or others for unhappiness because suffering is the very core essence of existence. When we stop chasing the will's carrot, we find new freedom, not freedom to have everything, but freedom to not depend on anything. This is the vital bridge to spiritual salvation. Remedies Schopenhauer built through art and compassion in upcoming paths. Have you ever wondered if there is a moment in life where desire truly stops giving way to peace, unbothered by both pain and boredom? Part 3. The Path of Liberation. Art, compassion, and stillness. After stripping away the brutal truth about blind will and human suffering, we cannot stop at mere despair. Arthur Schopenhauer, though often called pessimistic, spent most of his life seeking healing remedies and peaceful soul oases within desire's desert. He showed that man can escape the will's command through 3 paths: aesthetic contemplation, art, practicing deep compassion, and total denial of the will. These are not illusory remedies but higher cognitive states built on rigorous philosophical foundations. Now, the first path is aesthetic contemplation through pure art. Schopenhauer believed when facing great art, our mind stops seeking or longing. In that moment, we do not view objects as tools for satisfaction, but in their pure eternal essence, we escape time, space, and causality, becoming the pure subject of knowing. Among all arts, he honored music as the pinnacle, while painting simulates the will's representations. Music is a direct copy of the will itself. Listening to Beethoven or Mozart, we merge with the universe's pulse without being tormented by it. Art acts as pure anesthesia, helping us forget existence's burden, finding invaluable spiritual solace. However, art's salvation is only temporary. To go further on liberation's journey, Schopenhauer leads us to compassion's ethics. This vital turning point in awareness occurs when realizing division between self and others is an illusion created by perception barriers. When looking deep into shared suffering and feeling empathy, you realize we are all tormented by the same blind universal will. This awareness erases selfish boundaries, creating true compassion known as Mitlead. Research at Princeton University shows altruism and empathy reduce stress, bringing inner peace. For Schopenhauer, compassion is the knife cutting selfishness strings, helping man escape the ego's solitude, merging into the world's common pain to find relief. The final path, and the hardest, is will's denial, or asceticism. Here, man does not just soothe pain, but extinguishes desire's flame at the root. Influenced by Hindu and Buddhist philosophy, Schopenhauer praised absolute inner stillness. When desires are conquered, he believed, through voluntary renunciation of sensory pleasures and living simply, man reaches states where the will has no power. This is the selfless state where the ego is not pushed by the suffering pendulum. He called this permanent liberation, similar to nirvana in Eastern thought. Schopenhauer emphasized this is not physical suicide, but spiritual transformation, standing outside longing to reach supreme tranquility like a still lake. Now, deepening this intersection, we see Schopenhauer found magical similarity between his will and Upanishad's concepts. He argued understanding the universe's unity leads to calmness before death and fate's harsh changes. If realizing we are small parts of infinite will, then ego's dissolution is not disaster, but returning to eternal essence. This awakening brings extraordinary inner strength, standing firm before storms without being swept by shallow emotions. He promised no distant paradise, but liberation here and now through changing reality's prism. Though Schopenhauer's philosophy is labeled pessimistic under modern healing views, it is highly practical by lowering external expectations and turning inward. We reduce contact area with disappointment. Experts at Harvard University recommend mindfulness practices, sharing traits with the stillness Schopenhauer proposed centuries ago. Observing thoughts and desires without being carried away is how we exercise ultimate freedom before the blind will. We cannot change the world's nature, but we can change how we react and exist within its heart. The journey through Arthur Schopenhauer's thought helps us realize bitter truth is the strongest antidote for illusions. Ignorance. We start by admitting we are slaves of the will, traverse longing loops, then find light in stillness of awareness and compassion. Schopenhauer handed is the key to open desires. Prison door. Art gives breath, compassion gives connection, and denying ego gives eternal freedom from pressure to succeed. This is not for the weak, but a commitment of courageous souls, daring to look into darkness to find their own truth light. Now, ending the series on the will's giant, we hope you found a new perspective on pain and happiness. Do not fear absurdity or suffering, as it is the material to forge resilience and kindness. Life may be a pendulum, but you now know how to not be swept away. Have you ever felt truly still after hearing great music or doing a kind act without expectation? That moment the blind will retreated, giving way to true inner freedom. Keep nourishing those moments to make existence more meaningful. Have a peaceful and mindful day.